First, we need journalists that can do a rigorous examination of a politician's thinking that reveals any contradictions. Secondly, we need to institutionalize real debate where people and political candidates can use the Socratic interviewing you have seen here to examine each other's premises. And finally, we need clear reasoning and principles that can serve as a proper guide to political action and proper policies. What you think is the proper function of government should be based on your conclusions about what kind of government optimizes your opportunity for a happy life. So, let's start with the social requirements of your happiness. If you want to have the best chance of a happy, satisfied life, you need optimum protection of your life, the freedom to follow your own judgment, and keep the money that you make. In order to have the optimum protection of your life, liberty, and property, you need a social institution dedicated to fulfilling that function. You need a government. However, to the extent that the government attempts to perform additional functions, it will invariably force peaceful Americans to act against their judgment. For instance, when the government assumed the function of liberating Iraq, the people that were against the war were forced to support it financially. The more additional functions that the government assumes, the more Americans will be forced to act against their judgment. To the extent that the government gets into the habit of forcing peaceful Americans to act against their judgment, we will all suffer. All of us will be less free and have less of a possibility of a happy life, because sooner or later, we too will be forced to support a cause that we detest. Therefore, if we want to optimize our pursuit of happiness, we need a government, but one limited to defending our individual rights. These are the important truths identified by our founding fathers. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. The Declaration of Independence expresses the proper function of government. It says, to secure these rights, governments are instituted. It doesn't give any other reason to create a government because there is no other legitimate reason. It doesn't say we need a government to feed the hungry of the world or to free the enslaved people of the world. The government's job is to make sure that other people and foreign governments do not use force or fraud against you, so that you can pursue your own life and your own happiness free from their interference. Therefore, all governmental actions must be justified on the basis of protecting the individual rights of Americans. Freedom is a requirement of good social living. Human beings need to be free to follow their own judgment if they are to live well. They need to be free to decide how much of their money to spend on education, on medical services, on retirement funds, on charity, and on everything else. The proper function of government is to protect the citizens' right to exercise their own independent judgment, as long as they respect the right of other people to do the same. Ironically, the government is doing just the opposite. The truth is, and the bottom line is, that your political leaders don't respect you. They don't respect your judgment about how to spend your hard-earned money. They tax you heavily, and then they decide how much of your money they're going to spend on welfare and who's going to get it, how much on corporate subsidies and which connected corporations will get it, how much on foreign aid and which countries will get it, how much on medical services and who will get them, how much on education and what kind, how much on retirement funds and whether the fund has any physical assets to guarantee payment, and so on and so forth. This lack of respect is not only morally wrong, but it also has many negative consequences. if the government is in the business of forcefully taking $2 trillion yearly from some citizens in order to provide goods and services for others, will that attract a lot of lobbyists and special interest groups that want to get their hands on other people's money? What will happen if more and more people quit their job, come to Washington, and try to get their hands on that money? I'll tell you. There's going to be less and less money to divvy up, and the fight over the money is going to become meaner and meaner until it destroys our nation. How will it affect the character of the people who are receiving the handouts? Will it help them become independent, productive citizens? Would the special interest groups attempt to purchase political influence if all this money and privilege were not up for grabs? If the money and the privilege were not up for grabs, we would have instant campaign finance reform. I hope my questions have persuaded you that forcefully taking money from some citizens in order to provide goods and services for others is not a proper function of government, because it is morally wrong and it has many negative consequences. Are you willing to do something to protect your money, your freedom, and your nation from this misguided policy and this failure of leadership?